sitting here with Laura Donker. Our second talk. First talk we did was in Dutch, and now a talk in English. Your nickname is the Trendy Buddhist.
Mm-hmm.
When did you first hear of Buddhism? What was your first encounter with this philosophy?
Well, that's actually a long time ago. I think when I was like 17, 18 years old, I got a book about Buddhism, and I really felt attracted to it. And then I think around my 20th, I went to Utrecht. It's called Buddhism under the Dom, and it was a course of Buddhism. And at the time, I don't think I grabbed it already, but I felt attracted to it. So from that moment, I would start reading more and more about it.
And what was it that gave you that first spark within Buddhism that touched you so?
I think it's also the quietness that people had inside, because we had a walking meditation, and I found it very difficult at the time, because walking meditation is that you walk very slowly, and the only thing I thought is like, okay, can this not go quicker, and I need to do shopping, and before I knew I was somewhere else, and that happened all the time. And I saw people around me who could just do that, being really in peace and finding something inside themselves. And I think the first years when I studied Buddhism, I did it with my head. So when my relationship failed, when I was around 28, I just realized that I had to do it by heart. I had to feel it really. And I also thought, I'm so devastated now, this relationship has ended. That's out of proportion. So maybe you should really practice what you always read and try to feel it and sit down and feel the emotions and go through it. And I think from that moment on, I began practicing Buddhism really. Before it was more in my head, because it's very easy to read so many books and understand it with your head. But when something really bad happens in your life, you also have to put it in place so it helps you in that kind of situations where you suffer.
Yeah. Practice what you preach.
True.
Yeah. And could you say that broken relationship was sort of a gift then? The next step in Buddhism for you?
Absolutely. It was, because I felt so not complete anymore, and I knew with my head it was not true, because I wrote so many books about it that you have to fulfill your life yourself, you have to create your own happiness, and when you have a relationship or a friendship, it's just adding to it. But you are the person who has to make yourself happy. You cannot give that away, that job. So I thought, when I don't feel a whole person now, so something went wrong. So I went researching it, and then I realized I gave away a lot of my independency to that guy. And I think that's what you see in a lot of relationships, that when it starts, everything is fine. You're in love, and the person gives you flowers and you're over the moon, and the person says I love you, and it's so nice, you're only happy because you're already stable, and that person gives you something that makes you feel very positive about yourself. And then after a while, you realize that you start needing it. So when the flowers don't come anymore, you feel, oh, there's something lacking, and then you're going to have all these perceptions about why the person doesn't give you the flowers anymore, or why the person doesn't say that he loves you anymore, she loves you anymore. So it's more like, it starts to be more like demanding. You have to do that for me, because if you don't do that, I feel not loved.
Incomplete.
I feel incomplete. Yeah. And I just said, when you start, everything is fine. Of course, that's also not always the case, because you can have a hole inside yourself, and then you find someone and you feel attracted to that person because the person is filling up that hole. But I think what happens a lot in a relationship, that you have this mutual dependency. You say you love me, and you say you will stay with me, and I will say that to you, and so we both feel complete and loved. But reality, it's not control. You don't control anything. You can say that to your partner. Your partner can say I love you 100 times. It doesn't mean that the person really stays with you. Yeah. Or and I think Brenda Shannon said, I really love that sentence, real love is that you welcome it when it comes, and that you let it go when it wants to go. And letting go is not always the case that the person really wants to leave you. That's sometimes the case, but not always. But it's also that maybe someone says, I want some freedom. I want to go on a hike weekend with my friends, and that you have to let it go, and that you're not worried about it, that the person might meet someone else, or that has effect on you. So you can see that person needs that, or the person says, I want to spend a year in India because I want to do my development on myself. You can let that person do that. So you see your loved one and you say, okay, what can I do so the other person may grow? And sometimes that hurt you. You have to let the person go for a year. But I think that's real love, and that's sometimes I think we miss that.
We want to control and claim the one we love.
Yes, and claim, and often when people claim someone out of insecurity, because I want you to do this for me, so I don't feel so upset. Often they don't take responsibility for that behavior because they think they're entitled to do that. They can say, I've been through a bad situation with another person before, it won't happen again, or I'm very assertive, I want to step my borders, this is what I want from you. And then they don't really take responsibility that what they do is not real love. It's controlling and claiming. Yeah.
That's not very sexy.
It's not very sexy, no, and I do think it's an ingredient to make a relationship fail on the long term. Yeah.
It's based on fear, the fear of losing someone. Was this the example you had in your youth? Mostly the first real love relationship you have, you sort of imitate what you saw at home. Can you tell what was your idea of a relationship as a young girl?
Well, I really love this question, because this is, I think, also a big thing why relationship fails. Is I had no idea. I had no idea about a relationship, and I had no idea about who I was. I had no idea what I wanted to give in a relationship and what I needed from a relationship. And I think before you can even start a proper relationship, you have to find yourself first, and you have to be in love with yourself first, and really see who you are, and then you can discover, okay, this person fits to me or not. Because I think everybody is okay, but not all the combinations are okay. And I think when I started that relation, I was just very young. I just liked the person. He liked me. He adored me. The first years, he absolutely adored me, and that made me a good feeling about myself. And I felt I belonged to something. So that feeling that I belonged to a person and to a group, that's something I needed. So actually, I started that relationship at the moment that I wasn't really finished with myself, with my development. And of course, you meet someone who's giving you something that you should give yourself, and that happens. And I think it's very a basic thing what a lot of people do. They're thinking in black and white. In Buddhism, sometimes they speak about a 0 and a 1. So they're saying you're a 1 or you're a 0, and when you're 0, you're nothing. And we're very afraid of being a 0. And 0 is also when you're dying. It's like, oh, then I'm not existing anymore. And that's freaking us out. So we're creating our whole personality. This is me. This is my habits. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not good at. And this is my values. And this is my things I achieved in life. And that's me. And if anyone else is going to attack that, we want to protect that idea, because
otherwise we become a 0 again.
Otherwise we become a 0 again. So that's why I think a lot of wars are based on, like, because everybody thinks they're right. It's if you have a fight, if you're seeing a fight between people and you speak with them separately, they always think they are right and the other person's wrong. And I think when you think so black and white, you don't give yourself the opportunity to be responsible for what you're doing, what you're putting in a relationship, and you're not taking responsibility for the choices you make. And you will end up in a relationship and you're saying, oh, I don't want this, it's not fair, the person should give me that. But then I think it's not about fairness, it's about seeing the other person and seeing yourself and seeing if the combination is right.
Some people tell me that love relationships, the first purpose of a love relationship is to find things in yourself that are blocking your own love. Do you agree? And is that also your experience? You're now in a relationship. Does it make you more free inside of old stuff?
I think in a way I do agree with that, because I think someone, a loved one is so close to you, that comes so close by, and it is a challenge because when I was single, of course I like to meet someone, and especially that soulmate person, like, okay, that's really someone that's just a right person for me, and now I met that person, I'm so happy. But then you also have the fear of losing it, because we always think something has a beginning and an end. So I think it has a lot of challenges that you always have to ask yourself day in and day after day, like, what am I giving in this relationship, and what am I taking, and is it in balance, and how much do I give myself? And I think you can lose yourself in a relationship becoming completely one, because if you're one together, that means you're half, and that's not right. You're both one. So I do think it comes so close to your emotions that it gives you a great opportunity to grow and to love and to let go and to let go of the control and let the other person be the person they want, and then you can experience real love. The person who really wants to be with you because he just wants to be with you, not because you're forcing it. Yeah.
So sometimes you meet people, you meet them on their own, and you think, wow, that's a very independent, strong woman. And then you meet her again after a week with her husband or with her boyfriend. You think, is that the same one I just met last week? Totally different version of that. Would you say more dependent, not as happy and cheerful and free as the week before you met them? Is that a signal that there's something very wrong in that relationship? If someone is really different with their husband or without their husband when you meet them?
Well, that's a possibility. It is a possibility that the person feels oppressed by being themselves and being as joyful as when you met her. But there's so many other reasons. We always think very black and white. We think about victims and perpetrators, but that's not real. That's not existing. I told you about the flower last time, and I really like to tell that story again because that's really illustrating what I mean. When I ask someone, what is a tulip for you? They describe the tulip, and most of the time for them the tulip is when it has the nice leaves and the flower is blooming, and but you also have the tulip bulb. And what is that? When you put it in the ground, you can also see that the tulip bulb needs the minerals from the sand. It needs the water from the rain, and it also sun. Needs the heat of the sun. So because of the non-tulip bulb elements, the tulip is able to grow. And when the tulip is bloomed and it's wilted, it falls apart, and then it's part from something else. Maybe an apple tree comes out. So you can say, actually the tulip's in the apple tree. So you cannot say, this is the tulip. So you can, but we want that because we can grab it. And we want, and if you don't see the system, it's like, oh, you see the flower, you like it, and you just pick it. And if you really saw the whole system, you love the flower, you would leave it and you would water it. If you see a lady like that, you can say, okay, what what's her name?
It's just an example.
So you can say there's non-elements. So say she calls her name is Miranda. So there's non-Miranda elements in her that causes that situation, and she's part of it. So you can never say it's because of the husband, it's because of the relationship. It's a whole system. You cannot say that's the tulip. So there's no victim, and there's no perpetrator. They're one, and they can switch also. And it's also from which point of view you're looking. If you're looking in wars, they see it the other way around. Everybody thinks they're a victim. If you can let that go, you can say, okay, I just see this happen with this woman, and when you let go of things, in Buddhism we call it to be free. Free means free of something. Sometimes you say, oh, your mind has to be free. Actually, what they mean is free of perceptions. If you have not a perception, if you're saying, okay, I see this relationship and I don't put any label in it, it's free, and you can transform it to anything. And I think it's all about transformation. So the only thing I could suggest with that lady is just, you can mention it, and also be aware of the perception that you might have.
Yeah.
Why it is. Oh, you were that like last week, and now you're here, and you're with this guy. So
totally different.
Yeah. So
a different version. I think, it's not the same lady I met last week.
No.
And it triggers something inside of me, because I used to, let's say 15 years ago, in relationships, I was that one who really colored himself to the environment when he was with a lady. I could be a totally different version of myself because I wanted that relationship to work. So, yeah, maybe the question is simpler. Can you be yourself totally in your love relationship? Is there, or is there a different version of Laura I see when your future husband would be sitting here?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so curious about that, because that's what I see a lot.
Well, I think if I come back on the 0 and the 1, it's an illusion that we are that
there's one version.
There's one version. There's one self. It's an illusion to say, because everything what you're today that might change in 10 years, and 5 years ago you were completely different. So I think you have so many elements in yourself, and certain situation triggers something else. It's with the flower. It's like all the elements together create that moment.
Yeah.
And so you can say that's she's different, but in both sides it was a result of the elements at that time, and the transformation was what you saw, and then the mind goes so quick and makes it right or wrong.
A judgment, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think she cannot be herself in that relationship. That's the first thought that comes to mind with me. That doesn't have to be the truth. That's what you say.
Well, if you the problem is when you describe it like that, you make it a black and white situation, and she has less space to be able to see the whole picture.
Yeah.
Like with the flower, if you can see, okay, I see this situation. What were the seeds? What were the elements that I came here? And how can I change that situation? You can be freely changing about, okay, I want a situation that I'm as joyful with this guy as well. But then it's free. And otherwise, if you say, okay, I liked her better the week before because she was joyful, and it's something inside you that's triggering. Maybe someone else wasn't triggered by that because they didn't have the experience you had.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see, and of course I'm struggling with that sometimes. How do you say that? If that would be my friend, what would I say without making it non-dualistic?
Yeah.
I think it's for me, it's every time it's a challenge to just give it back as it is. This is what I know it's my truth, and it's not an absolute truth. And just do what you want. So maybe then people can grow. And also what I'm asking sometimes in a situation like that, what I would, for example, ask is, what kind of relationship would you like to be in? Where do you want to be with this person in 5 years' time? How do you want to come across? So you can make them think about the transformation future. Because what often happens is, I love the metaphor of the wake behind a ship. People are sitting and they look at the wake behind it, and they're looking at it, and then you ask the person who is driving the boat, who is sailing, and it's the engine. The engine makes, and then you can ask, okay, who's on the wheel? It's all those metaphors to think, okay, who is in charge of your life? Because what we often do is we look at the wake and we explain it, and we're going to see all the little elements and then have an excuse why we're there. And for example, that situation with this lady, that's a trap, that she could fall into that. Yeah, but this and this and this happened, and that's why I'm like that. And it's way more interesting to say, okay, let's go to the future. And you cannot drive the boat with the wake. You have to go on the wheel. So how are you going to change that? So but it's always challenging, because if I see something and I really feel it's wrong, of course, sometimes I think things are wrong, and you can never stop thinking, I think, completely like that, because that's also how we survived. We have to know, like, a bear is dangerous, or we have to run away from it, otherwise we'll be eaten by it. But most of the time we feel like there's a danger, and we have all these adrenaline and all that hormones, and actually there is no fear, because our perceptions are wrong. So I always ask myself the question, is it right what I'm thinking? And also, don't take yourself too serious. Even if you think 300% you're sure about that, just don't take yourself too serious, because it's just your opinion, and it might be wrong.
Yeah.
It might be wrong, and the other person might be right.
Yeah. You wrote a book a couple of years ago about happiness.
Mm-hmm.
What is the book about?
Well, it's a book about Milan, and he's doing this journey, and he's looking for happiness. And I wrote it 3 years ago, and it's funny also how you develop yourself, because it's the whole Buddhism I didn't put in, because at that time I was afraid that people would think bad about it.
Yeah.
And I experienced sometimes in lectures that when you say the word Buddhism, that they think it's a religion, and then some people don't want to have anything to do with it.
You think it's a philosophy, you told me?
I think it's a philosophy, and I think actually it has a lot in common with psychology from the West. So the book I wrote is about Milan, and it's just all he speaks with a lot of people, and everybody teaches him something, a lesson, and then at the end there's a little book that you can put your own experiences in. So, but it is nice for me also to see that the fear at that moment of being that people had an opinion about it. If I would use the Buddhism inside, that would be bad, so I didn't do it. I'm still very happy with the book, and I heard so many positive response on it that helped people to find happiness in life. And now I'm like 4 years further, and I'm writing a book, and I do put the Buddhism in. So you see, every time you have a right and wrong, and it changes constantly.
Yeah.
And
Well, what is happiness for you? What is the right way to happiness?
Well, for me, the right way to happiness, and of course, that's what I say at this time. Maybe next time, next year, I will say something else. For me, happiness is to see that everything is just transformation. So, this moment I'm here, and it's just because all the elements are in this right place, and this is why the transformation took place, and this is the result. But it doesn't stop. There's no beginning or end. We're thinking a lot about life cycluses. Also in a relationship, you have a beginning and an end. You have, and when I let that go, then I feel there's more happiness inside. When I let go about good and right, because sometimes people speak about the black seeds and the white seeds. So it's okay. You have all these seeds inside you, and you have to water the one that you wanna be blooming. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And even that I don't agree on anymore, because sometimes I think something is very bad. For example, that relationship that failed, I was completely 100% sure that was a bad thing that happened to me, and then afterward it was a good thing. And I think that happens a lot with people. They think, oh, this is not good. I
lost this job. Oh my God, what am I gonna do?
Exactly. And then it was the best thing ever. Yeah. And often when I speak with people about this, they want to convince me, and then they're coming up with the real drama in life. And I think, so what is it? What brings it to you when you think like black and white? Because certain things just happen to you in life. You don't, like death, or when people are in accidents, or there's so many things that happen that you don't always control, but you're the one who controls how you deal with it.
Yeah, good old Shakespeare once said, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So is thinking our main problem?
I think so. Wayne Dyer said, if you change the way you look at things you look at change. I think the perception I wrote somewhere that 80% of our perceptions are wrong. I don't know if that figure is right, but I do think that most of the time we just think so black and white to protect our world that we have a wrong perception. there was a guy in my training, and he had a super funny example. He said I was having a training and to come up for myself and be assertive, and then he was in traffic light, and there was he said the light was just really literally 1 second green, and then the guy behind me started beeping.
Yeah.
And he was like, and I didn't know what happened. I just got out and I went to him, and I went like, you have to put the window down. And the guy, the only thing the guy said was like, you were driving behind, you were coming backwards. So
Oh.
exactly, the guy was beeping because he was thinking he was going to bump into him.
Yeah.
And then at that moment, his whole reality changed from this guy's just telling me off and he's not fair and he's impatient.
He was thankful.
He was thankful.
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot to us. The reason why we think something is good and right is only because of the information we have at that moment, and most of that information are not facts but assumptions.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you learn with meditation, to see your mind and see how wrong it sometimes is. And then on top of that, because you have that meditation, of course, being calm and down, on top of that you have the meditation that you go really inside. And I discovered, I had it a couple of times. It's not that every time when I meditate I'm there, but there is a place inside, and it's just neutral, and you're just very happy. And the more you train yourself to go to that place inside yourself, it can help you when you have difficulties. You can go back to it. Your difficulties don't go away, but you can deal with it better. And you also translate it differently. Like what you said, you're losing your job. You can say, this is the end of my life. I will never have a job like that again. Or you can think, this is the beginning of something new. So they will have different emotions. If you think, I will never get over it, you'll have a different emotion than when you think, this is the new beginning.
Just reminds me, you dropped the name of Wayne Dyer. He's not amongst us anymore,
No.
Unfortunately.
No.
But he left some great audio tapes and also seminars. And the movie The Shift, From Ambition to Meaning. For me, that movie, I watched it the third time. It really gave me a push in the direction of quit with this, start with that. What's for you? What do you think is most important in life? Meaning or ambition? Or both? Yeah,
that's. I cannot. I think it's not one or the other, and I think you can be ambitious and meaningful, and also meaningful. You can never be for everybody meaningful. What's meaningful for one is, and so when I started working as a therapist, I wanted to help always everybody, and then I realized, am I helping because of because I have that nice feeling when I help someone, or what I don't know if you know what Dharma Sharing is. So in Dharma Sharing, you're sitting in a circle, and when you start speaking, you're doing your hands folding like that. It's nothing with religious. It's just a sign that that person wants to say something, and people do it back as a respect, and then the person has the space to speak, and nobody will interrupt. And even if the person waits for 1 minute or 2 minutes, so there can be silence. So normally very rare in a conversation, because when people leave a silence, the other person always, most of the time, drops in with something. And when I started doing Dharma Sharing, I found it so difficult, because I had this thing, I can help the person. I can say this and that, and that will be so helpful, and the person will be so thankful, and the person has to know this because he's on the wrong, that's wrong what he says, and I have this information, this website I can share. So I was constantly busy. And then I realized, why am I busy? Is it because of the person, to help the other person, or because I like that role, that I can help the other person? And then I had to admit, it had a lot to do with my ego. Oh, look at me, how cool I am, and I know everything, and I'm going to be your hero. And by being in that situation, you're putting the other person down, because you think, I need to drag you out of something. And then after a while, I started not to do that anymore, and I started listening, and I had to admit that was very helpful for the other person, that you only listen. They didn't need all the advice. They only wanted to share and they only wanted you to be there for 100%. And that was for me such a relief. And first of all, it's a relief to be really in the present, to listen to the other person. And also I learned that it helped me a lot, because everybody's sharing things that, you know, we are very in common. You see, oh, that person tells, oh, I have that feeling. And so now it's my favorite part of a day in the Buddhism. You always have a lecture in the morning, and then in the afternoon you do Dharma Sharing, and I really like it. And I tried also to do that. I also do that during my day. And if you say, I think that's meaningful. And ambition for me, it's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you have your goals, and that's nice. But I always think when you're ambitious, you have to think, what does that mean for other people? So like, I wanted to give advice, or you can say maybe there's ambitions, I want to be helping people, and then you realize it's not really that good for the other person, it's not really helping the other person at all. So yeah, I think I see it like that a little bit.
And can ego be transformed, destroyed? How is it with your ego?
I don't think you can ever destroy it, and the mind, we call it the manas in the Buddhism, always wants to tell you, you're that number one, you're one, and this is you, and protect it, and very quickly things in good and right. And I think that's also a thing that we need to survive. You know, you stop for a traffic light because you know it's dangerous to go over it. But I think you can recognize it. You can recognize, oh, this is my ego. I'm doing this because it makes me feel good. And then you have the choice. Okay, I feel I have to do. I feel like my ego wants to shout, look at me, look at me. But I choose not to do it. I choose to listen to the other person, or I choose to go to the right instead of going to the left. So I think with meditation you can understand your ego more and more, and I think when you understand it more and more, you can create different habits, but you never can destroy them. Him, her.
Yeah.
Ego. No, I don't think so.
And such thing as enlightenment, is that talked about a lot in Buddhism? Is that the big thing that everyone wants to reach?
Yeah, it's not really, because what I often hear in speeches that they're saying enlightenment isn't. It's because if you're saying I do all this practice to be enlightened, that means that's a good place, and before you're not on that good place yet. So it's dualistic. My belief in it is that you can have enlightenment moments. So you can really have that. We all have. You must have it as well. Sometimes you're somewhere and you feel so much love and so much connection with someone, and even if someone does something very bad to you, you can see, for example, people are angry and you see all the non-anger elements in it. You can understand, and you don't see the anger anymore. You only love the person, and you know, and that everything is right, and you feel that peace inside you, and that's maybe a moment of enlightenment.
So no permanent enlightenment.
I don't believe that. No, of course they're saying the Buddha reached enlightenment, and I don't believe that.
Yeah, someone last told me that the Buddha wasn't enlightened because of he did so much practices. He was just tired and sat under the tree, and he just was exhausted, and that was the moment when he gave up and everything was okay. Yeah,
it is a story that he tried and tried. First he tried to, he was of course in the palace, he was very rich and everything was there, and then he left the palace to do some research, because he saw when he left the palace once, he saw someone he saw an elderly people, someone who died, a sickness. He was so shocked because he never saw that, so he went I think it was 7 years. He didn't eat nearly anything, and then he fell in the river and nearly drowned. And then he realized this is not it, and he was just sitting under the palm trees. Not palm trees. What was it again? Olijfbomen.
Olive trees.
Olive trees. Yeah. And I think when you are capable of letting go, that's probably what the guy meant. But if there's a difference between. Sometimes people say I'm meditating and I feel so calm and everything is peace. That's not. It's just preparation meditation. It's that you are calm, but the real meditation is having the right perception. the right perception is something completely different than knowledge. What I was speaking about before, you can read thousands of books and have so much knowledge, but if you don't have the right perception, it's pointless. And I think with meditation, first you have to calm down, because if your mind goes everywhere, and then afterwards you have to understand your mind and understand the wrong perceptions and facts and assumptions. And so I do think he was not only sitting like that and then had alignment, but I think he was capable of letting go of things that were for him right or wrong. Or
yeah. You travel around the world a lot, as a purser. Is that the right English word? On big airplanes. You visit a lot of different cultures, different countries. How is that? When you come to a country, do you immediately taste, oh, here's a very different atmosphere than back home? And can you tell us something about that? How does that affect you as Laura?
Well, the funny thing is also I fly now for over 18 years, and the countries that I feel attracted to, they're changing constantly. So it has a lot to do with me, with my learning process.
You are a different version of yourself when you come there. You see the country different. Yes,
I really feel attracted to China now, going to all the temples, and but what it taught me was that we are just in Holland. We're just very small. It's a small country with our habits, and all over the world they have different habits, and then you can see that a lot of truths that were in my mind that were just culture, and because I fly all over the world, it's different. They are different. And
can you tell an example? Is it like the 3 kisses we give each other when we meet? That's not the same everywhere. Maybe something like that, or.
Well, for example, in certain countries they are very close by.
When they talk with you,
they're like here, and it's like, okay, just and we think it's inappropriate. For example, in Japan, and they are very clean. So if you have, for example, something, you have a box of apples and you put it on the floor because it's in a box, we think it's okay, and there they wouldn't. It's like no, it's not good. The bowing is we give hands, and for them they don't want to shake hands because also because of hygiene. They think it's but it has to do with respect. So and I see in a lot of countries like China, Japan, it is a lot with respect. So
do we lack that here over in the Netherlands?
I think in the Netherlands, I don't really. Of course, we also we respect each other, but for a nice example, maybe when you're in America and also in China, if you are employee of the month, that's a big thing there. They really think it's super cool, and there's a picture on them the whole month. And in Holland, it doesn't work.
No, only at McDonald's.
It's like every look at him. It's a little bit like.
You're gonna make fun of him.
Yeah, and in Holland we make our own rules. We don't really. I think in America it's less likely to go against like a police officer than. But like in life-wise, because I'm thinking now, about your question, and the funny thing is, what I realize at the moment. That mainly we are the same. And because for my book I interviewed a lot of people about happiness, and in so many different cultures. I did it in New Zealand, in America, Canada, but also in the Middle East, in Tehran, and they're actually the same. If you really look at them and you make contact, you see, of course they have different habits there and they dress differently, but if you ask what makes you happy, you get the same questions, and it's like, I'm happy when I mean something to the world, and when I'm around it with loved ones. And
so happiness is universal.
Yes, I think and I think also with all the wars that are going on, sometimes I think we should be doing Dharma sharing all the time. Just listen to the other person. Why is it that someone who grows up and has a family kills another person? Why is it? What is it that they're into? So you can really understand and you can transform it instead of bombing it, or it's. And it doesn't mean that you don't have to do anything. It's not, because some people, when I speak with them about this subject, it's like, yeah, but you have to protect yourself. But I think sometimes we think that we protect ourselves and making it problem bigger. Because when we have pain, and that can be with a war, with an attack, but it can also in a relationship, we feel pain and we find the perpetrator, and we want to eliminate that person or that situation, and then we think we feel better. And the stupid thing is, most of the time we pick the wrong one, or the wrong. We don't have the real cause, because we don't have the real side. We only see the tulip. We don't see the tulip bulb. We don't see the water, the ground, the minerals. We don't see the whole system. So it's
the same when you start cutting off weed in your garden. Huh? It starts growing again, because you didn't get to the root of the plant or the weed. I come from the Advaita world, non-duality. And a non-duality teacher would say to you, Laura, you have never been anywhere in the world. What you are is still and stays the same and never moves. All those countries just appeared in you. Does someone from Buddhism look at that? Is the world something that it comes up in you, or are you in a world?
Well, the world's in me as well, because if I have 5 minutes no oxygen, I'm dead. So of course that's in me, and if I eat food, that becomes part of me. So it's a system. I'm not like a separate person. Separate, I will never survive.
You need the world.
I need the world. I mean, all the bacterials in our system, we need them as well. And if it's like it's just happening and we cannot control it, that's I understand that that's a truth, and it's a relative truth, and my truth is also relative. So I will never say that's wrong and what I think is right. I just feel more connected with the idea that everything is just transformation and transformation. So there's no beginning and no end. And if I'm dying, I have no children of myself. I have 3 stepchildren. So you can say, okay, a part of me will grow in them, even if it's not my blood, but I tell them words, and you spoke to me, so something from you in me. I take you when I go. There's part of you in me. So and I do believe that there is a way of control that you can, and for me at least, it can control my happiness in life, and I think also the happiness I can bring to others, because I see how damaging wrong perceptions can be, and how damaging it can be that I react on assumptions instead of facts, and that I react on black and white. But I also realize it's my truth and it's not the absolute truth, because the absolute truth, that's not the absolute truth in Buddhism, saying that's like just the completely emptiness, and that's still very abstract for me as well.
Is there a place for free will in Buddhism? Did Laura choose to come here today, or did it just simply happen?
Well, what I say, I do believe that there is a will, and I wrote so many stories about it, and even they're doing so many research that actually they can, in your brain, they can already see a couple of seconds before you pick something, that in your brain they already knew. So then you could think, okay, there's no free will. But then I think, okay, what then? What can I do with it? Knowledge?
Maybe some less blame on yourself, that you think, oh, I made the wrong choice, I did it wrong. Maybe it gets some guilt out of your system when you know that things are just simply happening.
Yeah, but I think for me, guilt is a very beautiful emotion as anger to do some research on and do meditation on, and say, okay, what is the non-guilt elements? So, for example, you feel guilty because you said something to a person that hurt that person. You can say, okay, what non-speaking elements are in there. So what happened to me that I went there, and then you can say, okay, the person said that to me, and when I was younger, this and this happened to me. So there was some feeling inside myself that felt that I wasn't seen by the other person, for example, and that's why I said something that was not nice.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense when you see the tulip and you're going to describe the tulip. It's better to say, if the tulip, for example, blossoms but very quickly wilted, yeah, you can really feel, you can better say what happened before, and also even when it falls apart, it will be part of something else. So it's not a bad thing, because you can say something. Sometimes people say things to me that were harmful or painful, but I needed them.
Yeah.
Because then it's a lesson for me to, when I was younger in high school, I was not really part of the group. So for me, it was a learning when people ignored me. I just hate that feeling, because I always want to be part of the group. So if nobody ever ignores you, you cannot learn. You
touch on that. Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot touch it. So, and I think guilt is very black and white thinking. It's like, okay, and also overestimating your own power sometimes. Yeah. It's like, oh, I did all of this. Okay, you have to understand.
You are part of a bigger thing.
Yeah.
Everything influences everything.
Yeah, and sometimes you can feel so bad because you feel guilty or you suffer so much that you have to train yourself to do nothing at that moment, because sometimes the pain is too much. You can think, oh, I'm going to think, and then of course when I see things differently, the pain goes away. Sometimes that's not the case. You just feel miserable, and it's very interesting to teach yourself to feel it and not to do anything, so not to react on it. And if you can do that, you will experience so much more control in your life. It's like, okay, the thing can happen to me, I can feel very bad, but I can handle these emotions. And that's freedom as well. Yeah,
you're not really reacting on everything that's done to you.
No.
You're giving a response, a normal response.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds great. So you're writing a new book. Is it also being released in English, maybe? Or?
Yes. We're going definitely releasing in English, because this one I tried to translate in English, and we are like halfway. But because it's very metaphoric, it's very difficult to let it translated by other people, because they because it's metaphoric, so it's sometimes difficult. So, but everything what I'm writing now is also in English, so I start straight away. It's easier.
And what's the book gonna be called?
Well, one book is it's just a general book about being happy in life and close to yourself. But I have a lot of attraction to the relationship side, because I see so many people miserable in a relationship, and then I think it's not neat. You there's certain elements that you can put into your relationship that you can create a loving situation, but there has to be work done sometimes to the individuals with themselves. And also when you separate, you can do that in love, in a loving way. I see sometimes people are creating like little wars between them, and it doesn't bring them anywhere. And so I really like to be, that's like a mission or something. Yeah. I like to spread that, and also because I've been so long in that relationship that ended. I was in that relationship for 6 years, and it was just bad. It was just a bad relationship. And why did I stay so long? Because I was afraid. And sometimes it's nice to show that to people, that you can make the step. And the other is I also, because before I started psychology, I studied dietitian, so I also always have also the link with food, because I think food is such a big medicine. I don't really believe in all the pills, and so that's another book. It's more about a health issue, being happy with your body, feeling fit, and good weight, stuff like that.
Everything is on your website, laurandonker.nl.
Yeah.
You also do talks when you travel around the world. We can see them on YouTube. And what are they about? Different subjects? You told me something about social media you talked about recently?
Yeah. So it's little films that we make. We shoot all over the world, and we're making a Dutch one and an English one straight away. So also for the English viewers, they can listeners, they can look it up in the Trendy Buddhist YouTube channel. The last one was about social media, because I was just thinking, is that freedom or is it not freedom? And a lot of things I think is freedom. My family lives in New Zealand and in Switzerland, and when I'm abroad, it's so easy to, with WhatsApp and Facebook, to share your life with people. But I also saw the other side at that moment, so I decided to make a film over it. Like, for me in the beginning, I can remember my first email. I don't know if you remember. I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it that I sent it, and a person in America got it. It was magic. It was like magic. It was so cool. And then the whole internet is like, oh my god, it's just a library. I can look up everything. This is super, super cool. And now I feel more and more like, okay, when I'm on board, they can film me and they can put it on Facebook straight away. If I put a picture on, people can steal the picture and steal my identity. If I say something today on the internet, that can influence me in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. So is that real freedom? And it's not a black and white. It's not like, oh, it's all bad. But I just wanted to shoot a film about, think about if it gives you freedom. Sometimes it's very nice to leave your phone home when you go for a nice walk, so you can really see the surroundings instead of looking on your phone all the time. And I think last time I spoke with you about it, I was in Aruba, and there was a little girl with her parents, and she tried to speak with her parents, and they were only watching on the phones. And then I think after 5 minutes she gave up. And she was just sitting there, and it just broke my heart. It was so sad. And I think they don't realize what they're missing at that moment, because it's like that, and the child will be old, and they're losing such a precious time with their kids. And also the kid tries to be connected, and it learns from a very young age that's more important than I am. So and it's different subjects. Like I had one about relationships, independency in relationships. I think there are like 9 or 10 at the moment on it. So
in English.
Yeah, in English.
Okay,
yeah.
You can watch that.
Yeah.
Thanks for visiting us. We have a couple more minutes. Anything else you want to touch upon? Freedom, maybe? What's freedom to you?
Freedom for me is to be who you really are. And I love the quote, and I thought this morning, I like to drop that one in from Wayne Dyer as well. Wayne Dyer, I really love him. Yeah. And my Buddhist teacher is Thich Nhat Hanh. I thought I'd say that as well. But Wayne, he said this, you probably know it, like, don't die with the music still inside you. I just love that one. And so many people, everybody is so unique and beautiful, and sometimes it looks that the world teaches to be just ordinary, and don't step out. And I love that sentence, like, what makes you so special, and don't imitate anyone, because you are unique, and you are worth, you're giving the world something. You are that little element that can create something that someone else's life changing. And I love that idea, and I thought I really wanted to share that one as well. So everybody, don't die with music still inside you. Listen to your own music and share it.
Okay, we will try. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we should do it like this, yeah.